Greetings, brethren. Oh, it's me, the donkey, and we are back with beer. Donkey versus beer. And once again, we are going to tackle my absolutely massive box of Lemke brewery beer. So Lemke, as I've said before, is a Berlin craft beer brewery. And I have decided I might actually skip a few of their beers because they, much like all the other craft beer breweries, have an absolute ridiculous amount of IPAs, and I'm not sure I'm going to like them all. They're probably all going to be very samey for me because I am just not much of an IPA guy. But this one caught my eye because this one is slightly different. This is a black rye IPA. Now, rye, which in German is Roggen, is not really something that I know a lot for, being a beer kind of grain. That's more something we make bread out of. If you've ever seen that really coarse, sort of grainy German bread, the really dark one, also known as pumpernickel or pumpernickel, that's what that's made of. It's made of rye. Also, you use rye for some kinds of whiskey. So it's interesting to me on that basis because it's made out of a grain that I don't particularly usually associate with beer making. So I'm really intrigued by this one. Is it any good? I mean, it's still an IPA, so it's going to be incredibly heavily hopped, I'm sure. But I'll give it a chance. The bottle is opened. It certainly smells like an IPA. Ooh. Oh, please, 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 please. A lot more foamy than I expect from an IPA, and my tiny little glasses, my tiny little half pinters that I still have, because I can't find any better, sizes for this kind of thing. They just can't take it on now. It almost has a coffee smell to it, which is kind of odd. Like there's definitely that sort of IPA hop smell, but there's also almost like a coffee thing going on. Really dark, really heavy, and I mean, you have seen the beer. It is practically black. I mean, this looks like a Guinness. Actually, it looks like a well-poured Guinness. I should just say that this is a Guinness video, and this is what I did. Hey guys, see how I pour Guinness? I'm pretty cool that way, just like, this is just easy for me. I would just pour the best Guinness ever. So let's have a go and, I don't know, find out what this weird concoction tastes like. Oh, that's so incredibly not for me. Oh, wow, there's so much going on there. Okay, so I can already tell for somebody who likes IPAs, this is going to be just really interesting. So if you are in Germany or you're somewhere where you can get Lemke brewery beers, try this one out. I think you'll be really, really excited by this one because it definitely has that sort of IPA front-loaded hit of hops, and it's really bitter. But then the other stuff that's going on there definitely is something that reminds me absolutely of almost like an espresso. It's such a deep coffee flavor, but then it sort of comes back and has really the same kind of thing that you get from eating just a slice of pumpernickel. It's crazy. There's so much going on there, and it just keeps on building on itself. Like that's intriguing. Oh. It's just the problem is there's a lot of layers. It's just none of them are for me. Ooh. Yeah, it's a lot. It's very extreme in its taste. wow, it's so interesting, and I can definitely taste the rye in there, which is kind of cool, really, in a way. But at the same time, oh, definitely not a beer for me. I'm gonna get horrific acid burn from this one. Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, this is not a beer for me. Ooh. If you're interested, by the way, this is a 7.2% alcohol, which is pretty strong, I would say. I mean, that's sort of Bock levels. Um, it's very interesting. So again, if you are an IPA drinker, you'll absolutely want to try this. If you can ever get your hands on this, you're gonna be really interested in this one, I think, because there's just so much going on there. I think actually, having tried some of those disgusting craft beer abominations, things like milkshake IPAs and chocolate stouts, chocolate porters, and all this coffee porters and disgusting. All of those things are disgusting, by the way. Um, I think if you like those kinds of flavors, like a chocolate stout, like a coffee porter or chocolate porter, stuff, whatever, I think you'd be really interested in this one because there is a lot going on there in terms of those really sort of dark, heavy flavors, really intense bitterness, and unlike with an IPA, where I feel the bitterness is very front loaded and just kind of lingers a lot, this one keeps building because the different components of this, the different sort of flavor layers that are going on, they all have really intense bitterness going on. So it's very intriguing, but it's a very heavy beer. I mean, I am already sweating absolute balls drinking this beer. It is quite warm and muggy today, so that doesn't help. But ooh, yeah, this is a tough one. Yeah, I don't know about this one. For me, it's not for me. I'm just gonna come out right out and say that it's not a beer for me. If you like more traditional beers, I don't know if this is gonna be for you. It might be. I mean, you might be interested in this, but it is so intense in its flavors that I think a lot of people are gonna be put off by it. Um, Again, I'm okay with with these kinds of beers where um, I think I've talked about this before. When it comes to craft beers, what I don't like is when you just randomly throw a bunch of crap in the mash and you're like, ho ho, it's now a milkshake IPA, stuff like that. It's just stop it. It's not necessary. You don't have to be just gimmick. Just try to make something interesting and something fun, something that still kind of follows beer brewing tradition, but it puts in interesting curveballs that aren't just, oh, I dumped a bunch of dried fruit in the mash. Oh, aren't I quirky? And this is that. It takes a grain that is usually not used in beer brewing, and I totally understand why it's not used in beer brewing now, because holy, it really dominates what's going on with it. Um, and yeah, and just make it something interesting. So I do appreciate this beer for sort of trying something completely different in a traditional way and not going just completely dumb with just putting in random nonsense that doesn't need to be in there. Um, yeah, very interesting beer for sure, but just not for me. I'm just. It's the flavors are just too heavy on this one. Uh, I think if this wasn't honestly, I would really like to try a sort of more normal beer that was brewed with rye, sort of like a top fermentation sort of Land or Land or Keller beer, something like that's just a simple beer, I suppose, but brewed with rye. I would really be interested in trying that because, if nothing else, I think a beer like that could be amazing for cooking. This one, I think the hops flavor is too annoying in it to make this a cooking beer. at least from my kind of palate, because I'm pretty sure that once you cook out all the alcohol and you reduce it and you have this in your gravy and whatever, or you put it in a stew, I think the hops flavor would come through too much, and it would kind of be too over the top as well. That's the thing with cooking beers. You don't want any qualities that stand out too much. You want that to... Basically, when you add beer to your cooking, this is just general cooking advice. If you want to cook with beers, you want to look for beers that are very flavorful but well-rounded, because basically what you're putting in there is a European soy sauce with less salt. That's kind of what you're doing. You're just putting in a bunch of sort of savory umami flavors, which you get from a really smoky, dark beer, like a heavy red ale or a heavy brown ale, something like that. Those tend to add really, really deep flavors to anything you cook. But you don't want anything to stand out too much. You don't want really heavy acidity, because or acidicness, whatever, because then that's what I don't like about dishes that use red wine. I'm not much of a red wine fan in cooking or white wine fan in cooking, because I find the acidity too annoying. It just kind of overtakes the dish. I prefer beer because it just kind of adds the umami to it. Which I suppose is also kind of a cheat, but never mind. I think this one, the bitterness would overtake it, and it would become kind of annoying. So for me, I don't think I'm going to even try to use this in cooking, because I don't think it would quite work. Maybe if I can get my hands on just one of these bottles without having to buy a whole box of them again, I might just try it for shits and giggles at some point. But my general gut feeling, as someone who uses a lot of beer for cooking, I don't think this one would work quite particularly well. Ratings-wise, for me personally, this is a 2.5 out of 10. I do not really like this. Again, I think it's interesting. I think the rye aspect, I wish there was a beer that tried this without the IPA influences, without the really heavy hop flavor going on, because I think it could be a really cool cooking beer. But specifically this one I would never drink again. I'm not going to finish this at all. This is just not for me. I'm sure there are other people who are going to really enjoy this though. So again, if you're an IPA drinker, I think this is one you should try to get your hands on, because I think this might be really interesting to you. But get it in the winter. I think you'll enjoy it more then. Yeah. Also not a beer you want to drink warm. I've said this before a couple of times. There are some beers that are good warm, but you need to chill this one and you need to drink it in the winter. So yeah, but if you can get it then and try it, I would give it a go, because it's certainly a very interesting experience. Just not one that gives me anything. Alright, thank you very much for watching. I hope you have a wonderful evening, and please come back and join me again on another day when I wax lyrical about the brown juice in the glass. Take care, guys.